This podcast contains strong language and adult themes.
Date Night China explores life and love for better relationships in China. Every week, we hear from different guests and dive into dating, relationships, mental health, and how both expats and Chinese people connect with each other here in China.
Join the Date Night community through our podcast and events in Beijing and Shanghai, and catch up on all the latest stories on our official WeChat account.
Find our account on WeChat by searching Date Night China, no spaces, no capital letters. You can also join our WeChat group by adding Rachel, me, on WeChat. You can search Rachel Weiss 22, RACHEL WEISS 22.
And now for this week's episode.
Welcome back, China Daters. We've had a short podcast break, but we're
a little summer
back.
holiday.
Yes, a summer holiday, and we are back and ready to go.
Yeah, ready to go. Yes, that's why we have this episode that you're listening to.
Yes, episode 22. So we're really excited to be joined by Jiovani del Toro, aka Cocosanti, is a drag artist and MC based in Shanghai. You'll find them hosting many events around Shanghai, mainly at the Pearl Theater, where they play hostess for a variety of showcases, including Drag Extravaganzas, Cabaret and Burlesque shows, and their personal favorite, and one I'm really excited to hear about, Magic Mike shows.
And known as Shanghai's premier bearded queen, hairiest hostess with the mostest, and aficionado of all things crusty, Cocosanti has enchanted audiences with their wit, humor, and passion for the arts for years. Their ability to meld mystifying sensuality with absolute absurdity guarantees a showcase unlike any other. With high energy, low patience, and astounding irreverence, one thing is always certain. Cocosanti will bedazzle and confuse, but always leaves the audience wanting more. So hello and welcome.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. What an intro. How did you like that?
I only want straight men to read that intro from now on. I feel like that is the perfect way to introduce myself. I
had fun reading it. Maybe we could just give you a sound bite and you can just like play that to people.
I think I will.
This is
right before I go on stage. It's just going to be Nathan's voice introing me. It's very useful.
Excellent. I'll re-record it. I'll put some bass into it. Make
sound
it
effects,
a little bit of reverb. Make it sound really good.
Yeah, add an air horn. Pew pew pew.
Stage worthy.
That'd be perfect. That's excellent.
Attention, passengers.
Oh my gosh, we're really happy to have you on this morning, and you are in Shanghai. So for the listeners, we are on a Zoom call, so of course there may be some short delays, but I can see all your costumes behind you as well right now, which is very exciting.
Yeah, this is what I do for all my recorded interviews and my podcast. I just record in my drag closet because it's already like buffered. There's like wigs to the left of me, there's shoes to the right of me. It's very useful for sound quality. And there's just some of my costumes. There's no other costumes over on that side, but those costumes are like one swear. You don't want to wear them too many times because you bedazzle too many times in the same outfit. It's a big no-no. It's a big no-no in the drag community. Look at me trying to sound like I know about fashion.
You've got to space out your bedazzling.
Yeah, of course. I mean, everything in this closet is bedazzled. Even I'm bedazzled, but I don't like to show it off a lot. Only when I go to the pool. Hi, how's Beijing? How's it up there?
We're doing good. Yeah, we've gotten through the summer. No more like lockdown really scares, but it's been slow getting back into things, I feel like still.
Yeah, a little bit slow, but things are getting back to, as always, you kind of feel like you've just been saying things are getting back to normal for the past 2 years, so you kind of get a little bit numb to it, and everybody just carries on. Oh, just talking about carrying on and keeping calm, let's just all mention the Queen. 'Cause everybody's doing it.
Yes.
I want to mention it, but like a lot of like companies and like businesses are like virtual signaling, almost like, oh, we're not going to post an episode on Monday because it's a funeral or something, or we're not going to do this. Ann Summers has got a banner with, thank you, Your Majesty, right under an advert for like, BDSM and dildos and stuff. it's performative grief where companies are, doing these really stupid and just like bizarre things to commemorate the Queen. I don't know. Will any of your shows be doing any genuine or performative grief?
I mean, I'm a little brown man from the USA. I don't have any connection to the Queen. Do I have numbers prepared? Yes, I do have numbers prepared. Should I perform them in my place of work? Probably not, but I'll probably find another venue where I can perform them. Actually, I had a Queen number that I wanted to do, and I don't think I can do it now because it was a burlesque number. And so I'm
Old Lizzie was very playful, and she had a good sense of humor, I find. In my opinion.
You talk like you know her, like your best friends.
We all know her.
You all know her. Oh, you British people. Oh,
Lizzie enjoy it. So do that number,
Oh,
take it on authority of another Brit.
This is no, like I want to make it very clear. I joke and I tease about the British family, the royal, whatever the thing is, the Winchesters, whatever the
the Winchesters. That's who it is.
That's how I always thought their last name was just like the Royals, and I was completely wrong. But lo and behold, I thoroughly enjoy Queen Elizabeth II. I love her fashion. I'm all for her looks, and I'm all for her memes. That's what I live for from her. So I was always there, and now I live through just watching The Crown.
Well, I'm sure she would want us to carry on. So with that in mind, I know we've sort of skipped ahead a little bit, but why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Introduce yourself to our audience.
yeah. Tell us where you're from. How long have you been in China? And how long have you been performing? Also, since this is Date Night China, what's your relationship status?
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, hi, I'm Cocosanti. I'm from the USA, from Boston, if anybody is familiar. We're right across the pond from England. We share a whole little ocean, a sad ocean, but it's, the mid-Atlantic. What are you going to do with it? I technically have been in China for 9 years, but my first 2 to 3 years, I was traveling back and forth because I was working with a company that was based in Boston. And so my previous work was working as an education consultant. And so I would travel around Asia setting up international programs at various schools. And that was fine. That was fine. I made great money. And then I decided to be a poor artist and go right into being a host for a cabaret theater in Shanghai called Candor. Candor is currently closed and under renovations. So I switched over to the Pearl Theater, which is a slightly larger and older cabaret burlesque theater in Shanghai. And I just wanted to put my undergrad degree to use. I said I wanted to do something before I was 30. I did it, and I lived that like poor artist life. And boy, is it rough. Boy, is it rough. No one tells you how rough it actually is, but my gosh, it is nonsense, but it's fun. It's fun. I enjoy it. Yeah, I enjoy my work. I get to wear pretty costumes. You see that?
Yeah. No, your Instagram is fire. Like before this, I was low-key stalking you on Instagram for your costumes, your performances. It's amazing. You guys check out Fresh Cocosanti. So, but I guess first of all, where did your inspiration for performing, being a drag artist and Cocosanti come from?
I was working as a consultant. I went to Shanghai a lot to visit some friends, and one day I went to see a drag show, and I was like, oh, I've missed drag so much. But the drag that I was seeing a lot in China and a lot in Shanghai was always, I'm going to be very comparative here. I'm comparing US drag to what I have seen in China. And the drag that I've started seeing in China was always very beauty based. It was very much like focused on the look and the presentation. But I'm from the Northeast of the US, and in the Northeast, from Boston, from New York, we're very much performance based. And so like our love usually stems from like theater and stems from like interaction with the audience and building up kind of a rapport with your patrons. And so when I decided to step into drag for a competition, I was just going at it from the angle of like, I miss like my ugly queens. Like I miss the ugliest queens that you ever see in your life. Those are always the funniest. Those are always like the ones who like really bring the show. Those are the ones who like who just like give you a different version of like what mainstream drag is, or what mainstream drag was at that time. Because you know, you've never necessarily seen a bearded queen like myself, or you don't always see like a chubby a brown or black queen here in China. It's a very straight, narrow concept of what a drag queen could possibly be. And so like opening doors for people to like see that there's so much more available in the world of drag, it was just really like cathartic for me, because it's something I never thought I would do, but I really missed seeing it when I was back home. And at that point, I hadn't been back home in like a year. I was like, God, we need more. We need to see a lot more. And I did a competition. I won. That's right.
Hey.
Yeah. It was the amateur, like it was split between like amateur and professionals, but like I won the amateur one. But it don't matter. It's good. I loved it. I thought it was fun. I met a lot of wonderful people.
The competition was here in Shanghai?
It was in Shanghai. Yeah.
Is that a yearly thing that they do?
You used to be. It was.
Oh, okay.
It was it was the Shanghai Pride competition, but recently Pride has been under fire in China. So like a lot of Pride events have been closed off due to certain sanctions.
Yeah.
And so they've been like hiding under certain guises. I think currently Guangzhou is the only place that has like an out loud Pride event, but that's because, you know, they're just starting and they're kind of under the radar to the police. So we'll see what happens in like a couple of years. But Shanghai has been closely scrutinized for the past like 2 years. And the organizer, who Charlene, was recently deported from Shanghai due to their work in Pride events. And so it was,
wow.
Yeah, it was really sad. And we as a community are trying to figure out like how we can still do certain events and do certain things to like showcase who we are. I mean, I'm always kind of like, you know, it's an everyday thing for me, so I'm not always like for the it's a month-long event kind of thing. But so like I'm just about like sprinkling Pride every damn day, everywhere we can, and doing it with glitter and a little bit of lipstick.
Yeah. So what does it look like now then? I guess you've said there's been these changes, but you're still hosting events. The events have come back. So what kind of shows are you hosting, or could you used to host? Tell us a bit more about the cabarets, the burlesques, and the Magic Mike.
Yeah, I mean, the Pearl is a really old venue that like hosts a lot of, because cabaret has been around for forever in China. I think it's been under a certain guise, and obviously it's been you know, demonized by certain communities, because when you think of cabaret or you think of burlesque, you're like, oh damn, it's Satan's work. But I think what's interesting is that when cabaret came to Shanghai in around the 20s, you still had venues and people performing and doing certain things within those venues that like were a little bit salacious, but a lot of fun. And so when we see what happens today, we're still upholding the same kind of feel and vibe, but we're giving that kind of onus to the performers who are really doing it to like be happy that they're doing burlesque and be happy that they're doing cabaret, because they are in control of what they put on stage, and they are in control of what the audience sees of them. And I mean in particular of like striptease and stuff like that. Don't worry, we're still under China regulations, so obviously it's burlesque and cabaret, so there's not like nipples everywhere. You don't see flapping coochies.
Damn.
It's just not a thing. We can't do that. We're still in China. I mean, maybe if you come to the Pearl with the VPN, maybe you'll see something special, but that's not how that works here. Our burlesque shows are usually run by, we have a school of burlesque here in Shanghai called the Silk Room Burlesque. Shout out to my girls. And I usually work in collaboration with the Silk Rooms to host some of their shows. But usually they are a separate entity, but I love seeing when other burlesque troupes come down and perform at the Pearl. Especially we had burlesque troupes from Beijing come down.
Yeah, there's a group from Beijing do you know Vincent? DJ Vincent.
Yes.
He goes down to Pearl Theater.
Vincent.
Yes. I saw him there
loves
before.
The Pearl.
Yeah.
He is extremely always excited every time he's at the Pearl. Yeah, we have I love seeing other burlesque troupes and performers come down. I think what makes the girls at TSR really special is that, you know, they always go in from the angle of empowering women and bringing all diverse bodies onto stage and bringing them onto the space. And that's kind of the principles that I stick along when I do any performance or when I host any performance. I really want to see diversity in people, in bodies, in every kind of aspect on stage, and I want to see it in every space, because it just makes a performance so much more interesting. Like, I hate seeing cookie cutter individuals just kind of like prance across the stage and then it just kind of falls flat, because then I'm like thinking, well, who is this performer? Should I be watching out for this performer or that performer? Because I want to see what they bring to the stage and the styles of performance that they bring to stage. And TSR is one of my favorite things to do, with burlesque especially.
Have you had any
hopefully I get to do
pushback?
my queen number.
Oh, have you had any pushback, I guess, from the China community? We've had a few episodes talking about like beauty standards and body types and things. And I know in China and in a lot of many cultures and things, yeah, like you were mentioning, maybe there's only one flat dimension of what beauty is supposed to be looking like. And do you feel like in China, because it is for an international audience and there's lots of international talent involved in it, is it easier, I guess, to push back against that? Or have you had any people come and say, oh, I wasn't expecting this, or this is not what I imagined drag and burlesque shows to look like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, every damn day, every damn day, there is a consistent pushback. We have licensed professional dancers at my place of work, and they are some of the most beautiful individuals you've ever seen. And they are extremely talented dancers and performers. But when I was very clear when I signed up with working with the Pearl that I also wanted to see other bodies in that space, because I didn't want to just do a performance that was going to be the expected norm, right? I think a lot of the times when you have locals coming to see a show, their expectation is the differentiation will be that there are foreigners performing on stage. Whereas, like, if I have a lot of an international audience and a lot of foreigners come to a show, they're just going to see dancers dancing on stage. And that's not always like jaw dropping to the audience. But when you see like a 6-foot Australian woman, 200-pound Australian woman drop down into a split and then take off her bra and spin some tassels, that's a shocker. That gives the audience a little bit more agency and a little bit more, connection with these performers, because they're witnessing the unexpected. And of course, every damn day, the TSR is mostly cis women. TSR is one prime example of the groups that I work with. But I also, when I create my shows, I try to bring in a lot of body and racial diversity into my showcases, I always get backlash. I get backlash even from my team where they're like, are these people capable of doing those things? And my consistent answer is I don't work with people who are not capable of doing something. I fill in so many boxes as a person who is unexpectedly there to showcase their talent, right? I'm a tiny little brown man, very loud and aggressive from the USA. I'm a cis male, but I'm super, super gay. Uh, You don't have a lot of expectations for me outside of my drag persona, but I bring my professionalism to the stage, and I hope that like that speaks for itself when I'm on stage, because that's where the talent lies in. I've worked with people who are like, who judge other people based on their appearance, and then are just like, they come up to them afterwards and are like, I was so shocked that you could like do all these things. And I'm like, why do you think they're here? Why do you think you're here? Because sometimes I look at those performers and I'm like, I don't know why you're here, but I know why like some of my performers are here. Because I collate a group of performers who have talent. I don't put people on stage who don't have talent. There's a lot of people who come up to me and are like, I could do that. I could do that. I'm like, okay, then do it. Let's see you do
Let's
it.
see it.
I hate when people say like, I could do that. I could have done that. Then do it. I don't understand what is stopping you from saying, from doing something that you say you are so vehemently like stuck on saying that you can do something. Why haven't you done it? And I think that there's a lot of leeway, especially in Shanghai, which was I came in when the art industry was kind of booming. So like there was a starting level. It reminded me a lot of like ABC City, New York. Like I think for musical theater listeners, it's kind of like Rent, that time period. Like people are kind of like, yeah.
Like,
People
I
are,
know
like,
Rent.
kind of- yeah. People are kind
I've
of
heard
like
of Rent.
struggling.
I do know Rent. I like Rent.
They're like struggling and sad artists, and they're like building their own legacy. That's kind of the place when I came in Shanghai, and Shanghai is like growing more and more each year in the art industry. We've kind of had some dips in the past couple of years because of, the unspeakable events that have happened. But still, like there's so much room, especially for individuals who want to try something new in their artistry, to just try it. I will say the biggest issue is when it comes to like certain regulations that pop up. This especially if you are a foreigner, you have to be very cautious of what you put on stage. You have to be very cautious of where you perform, because if your visa doesn't allow you to perform in places, if you're a teacher, you probably shouldn't be performing in places like random bars or anything like that. But that shouldn't stop you from like doing like a open mic, or that shouldn't stop you from like getting up and singing during a KTV event. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do
you
you have talent.
Do you think, because in a weird way, because it's China and because of the restrictions, actually that's kind of what makes a expat community or the creative or artistic community so vibrant, and the initiative and the ingenuity to keep that going, because you have to think outside of the box. You can't just think like in just like a flat like dimension. You need to think laterally to make it work, which is why they may get restrictions, but it doesn't die. It doesn't go anywhere. It just finds a new shape.
I think that China is a really good place to start to start your artistic journey, because I don't think it's outside the box at all. I think it's very much in the box. I think you're so far deep in the box that you don't have to worry about like thinking too hard or thinking too aggressively to make like a number or do a number that you feel like no one would understand. I from my perspective, I 100% get where people, they probably want to sing a song that is heavily, give me an artist, heavily Bono, right? But especially for an international audience, not everyone is like, who's U2? Like we have to remember, like, you have to remember who you're performing to. And I feel like creatively, that's very stunting for myself and for a lot of performers here. Because we have to think so hard to be in the box, it limits our ability to grow as performers. But if you are just starting out, I think it's a really great place to begin, because you can do that really popular number that's going on right now. You can do a lovely little Billie Eilish or a Olivia Rodrigo number, because people will get it, because people know what is hot and popular now. But if you're gonna, walk on stage and start singing Natalie Imbruglia, you gotta really sell it, right? You gotta let the audience know, like, why is she so torn? And that
Well, because she's
really,
all out of faith, that's why.
Yeah, I mean, and then they're wondering, why is she naked on the floor? Girl, get up. Like, it's
doing?
the little things. Yeah, it's the little things like that. But you grow from the experience of being in that box. And then after a certain point, you start pushing the boundaries to see, like, what will really allow you to engage with the audience. Don't get me wrong, I am very much for thinking outside the box. I usually start outside the box, and then I have to, like, reel myself in, because it's so far out there, and I have to remember that I'm performing for an audience for my job. But if I were to do something just for the sake of performance, I would just do what I wrote down, because I believe in what I do. And I think that's the biggest thing. If you believe in what you want to perform, if you believe in that number that you've always wanted to do, then the audience will understand it too, because you're bringing that energy to the stage. And I've seen it with my burlesque girls. I've seen it with my cabaret folk. I've even seen it with my Magic Mike boys.
Yes.
And boy,
Magic
boy's
Mike
that an
boys.
experience.
I need to hear about that. How do you do that in China? Because speaking about these kind of restrictions and things, is it like the movie with Channing Tatum, or they're just men stripping on stage?
Well, we are still okay. So we've worked in tandem with the actual Magic Mike show performers. We have connections with our wonderful producer Granto, who is one of the co-owners of the Pearl. He has connections with the Magic Mike producers in the US. And so we've been given permission to use the Magic Mike name for our showcases.
Wow.
And hopefully in the future, we'll be bringing some of those Magic Mike boys to our stage. That being said, we are still in China. I technically am not supposed to be talking about this, because at our performances, no photos or videos are allowed. We've gotten in trouble plenty of times. We've had to revamp the show many a times. Each time, like, kind of figuring out what will allow us to showcase as much of our boys without showing all of the boys. You know what I mean? I have to, part of my job is, like, going in and seeing, like, boys, show me your underwear. I need to see, like, what is allowed on stage, what's not allowed on stage. That's too
covered?
sheer.
Yeah.
That's too bulbous. I have to be aware of, like, how the boys present themselves on stage when they bring up the women to the stage and they do lap dances or any kind of performances. We have to go through training, and I have to teach the boys, like, how to interact with women in an artistic way, as opposed to getting
crossing that line.
It's not a private bachelorette party, you know what I mean? We have to be cautious. So it's very much Fight Club rules. We don't we don't talk about it. We don't do anything about it. We've recently been under fire because while there are no photos or videos, we've had some really good authors in the audience who describe in full detail how the Magic Mike show goes. And so they'll write reviews on Dianping and they'll be like, hey, oh, I saw this and this performer did this and I'm rating this performer and this performer. And we've had to like step out and be like, ladies, just don't shut up. Don't say anything.
Keep it to yourself.
Yeah,
like why?
We are not wanting this sort of publicity.
Women are like writing about their sexual awakening. Like, good writing, but keep it to yourself.
It has been so, and it's so funny because like recently we've also been getting, I guess because of those writings, we've been getting a lot of individuals coming to the shows with their spouses, with their boyfriends or their husbands or their girlfriends for that matter. And we've, I've obviously added that into my routine for like communicating with the audience, but some of those men are on guard all night long.
Are they wanting their boyfriends there to be like, hey, look at this, I want this, like dance like that?
Well, it's a very
or they're looking for like
dynamic action. Some of the boys I even like bring up to stage and make them do their own Magic Mike dance. And they're good sports with it. But some of them are very much like protecting their spouses, protecting their partners as much as possible throughout the entirety of the show. And my favorite ones are the ones who are like, every time a boy walks by, they just like grab their partner and start making out with them. And I'm just like,
oh, wow,
what do you think this distraction is doing? What do you think? You're not there anymore? You're invisible now. That doesn't work that way.
Nobody can see you.
What a weird technique. I mean, like, even if I was like, that's, I don't know, just a bit on the nose of like insecurity, right? I'd just like, if I was feeling that way, I don't think I would, because I'm just not that way inclined, but like, I'd maybe start a conversation or like, hey, what about that thing the other day? I wouldn't be like, this is a little bit obvious, isn't it? Because the girl would be like, what the fuck are you doing? Stop kissing me.
Unless they're getting turned on watching it. Maybe that's it. Maybe they're like, ooh, that's sexy, let's make out.
I mean, I hope so. I personally believe that is how that's working, because I can't imagine like one guy, actually, I think this was one of the funniest shows. One guy brought his I don't know if it was a first date, it was very unclear, brought someone to the Magic Mike show, and I think they thought it was a magic show. So that has become part of my routine, and boy, was that an experience. That was that was.
I bet they were surprised.
Did anybody see a magic wand?
Well, someone was doing a magic act that night, so it worked out really well. I'm the first thing they see when the curtains open, so like I'm already jarring enough for the audience, and so I get the roaring applause. What's happening? And I'm there to set the rules and the guidelines. And if I'm there enough to shock the audience, then that way we can keep them at like a certain level as we like progress through the show. So they're completely aware that it's not just like men coming out and doing random things. It's also an artistic performance. And that's how we're selling it. And that's how you can read that to social media. That's all you can say. We try really hard. We try really, really hard. But, our show next week is also canceled due to certain regulations that have occurred. Oh. We just started last week. But we'll see what happens. Oh, it's great. Wow. Yeah, it's you guys should come down, definitely.
I know, I really want to.
I do like the idea of like couples going there and maybe sparking some, hidden passions. And I like that idea, like maybe 5 years in the future where, little Timmy or Kimmy's saying, Mom, how was I born? And, the parent going, well, your dad took me to a Magic Mike show in Shanghai, and then I got knocked up.
And that's why you're called Mike.
So what?
And so, I mean, I get it. Yeah. I mean, I don't go in thinking about Magic Mike, thinking, oh, I'm doing something great for the greater good. I'm just thinking.
You don't know that. You could well be. There's a lot of kids that have, you're helping with the one child policy.
There's
the two child.
You'd be surprised. The high level of
a favor.
our audience who does come, it does range from like those who are really, really shy and they're sitting right in the front row and they're just so nervous throughout the entire show. You know, my job is to make sure that they loosen up a little in terms of like what, you know, but they're still comfortable. I'm very big on teaching my boys consent in terms of how they interact with their audience. Um, and having an audience member start off completely eyes shielded and head on the table to at the end of the night literally just like taking down drinks and hoping for the best. It's a wild ride, and I'm there to see the evolution of how people interact with their own sexuality in the Magic Mike show. It's great.
Yeah.
It's
I love
great.
it. It's so cool to hear just though how much time and thought and design goes into the shows, like you said, thinking about the audience, the crowd, and making sure they're comfortable. And I guess I want to also just ask more about your personal experience with it. How has being a drag artist and the hostess at the Pearl Theater, how has it impacted your own personal relationships with dating, especially, and meeting people, just interacting in a social setting in Shanghai on and off stage?
It's been I know you sent me this question before, and I'm still a little like I'm still a little confused on how to answer these questions because it has been difficult. It's been very difficult. I think that like there's an interesting dynamic to see Jiovani walking across the street and then seeing like Coco walking across the street, and how the same person can interact with one individual and how they can interact with the other. I think one of the biggest shocks for me when I started doing drag was going to queer venues and having people talk to me as if like they knew me for years and like were so excited to see me, but then being just Gio in the same place was always a different dynamic. I think that like there's I once again I'm using my own perspective from a US standpoint, from the perspective of an American, seeing, you know, how similar Shanghai is to what I would compare it to is like LA, Los Angeles. And in that environment, that's very like heavily relies on connections and growing your own personal network and creating like creativity from a place of business. I see how people interact with each other in the city, and there's always just like a layer of, well, what do you want from me? Like, right? We're going to go through formalities and we're going to have all these discussions. We're going to have all these questions and connections. But what is your end game here? And I hate, yeah, I hate feeling that way. Especially, like I said earlier, I'm from Boston and we are very direct. I've made so many people upset and angry just being who I am as an individual, because I'm very direct. I'm very no nonsensical. I don't sugarcoat anything because there's not enough time to do any of that, right? If you need something, ask for it. I don't need pleasantries. If we've known each other for a long time, then that builds another layer of connections. Just ask for things that you need. And in terms of like dating, you know, it's hard. It's hard, you know, getting swiped on Tinder and then the first question right out the gate is like, oh, are you that drag queen? Oh, are you Cocosanti? Oh, are you? Oh, I think I saw you at the Pearl. And I'm just like, okay. Um, I thank you. That is, you know, it's a persona, but I think in terms of like dating, it's so much work for me. And I already have enough work on my plate. In terms of building a relationship, that's a whole other job, you know? And I don't even have enough time to go to the gym. You know, I wanna I wanna do a lot of shit for me. And when I think of like building a relationship, especially in a place where I don't think or I don't see myself completely settling down, I just think that that is investing a lot of time in a place where I don't necessarily need to. So, you know, for my work and for the things that I do in my dating life, I kind of just heavily rely on a hookup here and there. And that is enough for me. That's enough for me because it was very useful, especially in the last 2 years, it's been super difficult because, you know, with the pandemic, we've lost a lot of tourism. And that's what I relied on most because there was no emotional connection. You know what I mean? There is no way to build a relationship or like
Oh yes.
have to like
indeed.
have to do any kind of like meaningless tasks with like courting. We are in it to go. I mean, I'm describing a lot, but I know you've had a lot of queer folks on your podcast, so like
yes.
I think you're very familiar with like a random blowjob here and there. That that is fine. We know our end game. We know what's going down. But I'm not saying like when I'm in the bedroom, there's no passion. I'm still Latino, right? We have to bring that any place that we can. But I can't emotionally support someone when I'm also trying to emotionally support myself day to day at this time, especially in my line of work, because I'm just always consistently like, I'm always at this point from like what I've experienced, I'm always on edge about, is because this person knows who I am I dating this person and this person wants something from me in the end of it? And that sounds like, I've worked with my therapist a lot on that. And I think we've figured out that it's just the environment that I'm in and the work that I'm in that's layered with that. Shanghai is naturally like this. There's just a lot of people who, put on that, US perspective, put on that LA smile and like have to do certain things. But I'm then also in the business where you have to also do that again and again. And so it's just so much work. It's just so much work to kind of like not be yourself.
Sounds exhausting.
Yeah.
And like you said, it sounds like
just
there's just so many layers with you being an onstage persona and performer and host, and then people see that side, and then seeing, like you said, there's a different dynamic when they see you off stage. And then also it's China. I think you're so right. I think this is what a lot of people have told us, like the China environment is very different, and it's very interesting how people
and now so after,
and even more so so many people leaving. Yeah, it's not the same anymore. And it just reminded me when you're talking about just like even the queer community, it's like Martin said something about that too. He's like the gay community is like light years ahead of the straight community with dating. Like we get straight to the point, and if you're honest about what you're looking for and what you want, and that's okay. If you're honest, you're looking for a hookup, great, go get it.
And listeners, that's a reference to a previous episode. I can't remember the number, but that was entitled the
Confessions of
the Beijing fuckboy. So
that was
a real fun.
That was our Beijing fuckboy, Martin.
He wanted to go by this, the name fuckboy.
He's a self-professed fuckboy, but he said
with a heart of gold.
But he's done a lot of self-work as well. He's like recognizing how he used to have these patterns of behavior. Now he's trying to work on that a lot, but he still very much self-professes. Take a listen to that episode. It's really good.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'm that's a red flag for me in general, but like I mean, I get it. I agree. Like we are, the queer community does have a lot of open-mindedness when it comes to dating in terms of like what we need and what we want in our relationships. And it's because, the layers of who we are as queer individuals and finding our own identity comes layered with like how we wish to be perceived and how, we would like to take that in from our partner. So I get that. I also think that like, I think that like, speaking from a foreigner's perspective in the community of China, it's not. I also have to recognize that like we are in a place that a lot of mm, that a lot I'm trying to say this without like sounding super offensive, but like a lot of foreigners do a lot of stupid shit here, and so like and so they feel like they can get away with a lot of things, and so I just see so many people who, you know, freely do things in this country that I know they would never do back home where they're from. And I don't know where people find that audacity to think that like it's acceptable.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
acceptable
actually,
behavior.
Actually, to go back to that previous episode, the term that we came up with was LBH, loser back home. That's which I think that, you know,
I think
that epitomizes what you're talking about there. You know.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I mean, I have all honesty, all cards on the table. If I did not have sex before I came to China, I would have thought something was wrong with me or broken with me, because in the US, beauty standards are very different. The dynamics of queer beauty standards are also very different. In from an American perspective, and then coming here to China and seeing that like how the beauty perspective works and then how the queer beauty perspective works, it's a whole other ball game. And it's actually a ball game that's loosely based on, I would consider, the early 2000s beauty standards of the US. So you know, you're getting a lot of like slim white or you know, very twinkish looking individuals, and that's the beauty standard, especially here in Shanghai. And that's just not, you know, that's not what I am. I'm a cute fucking sexy ass fat bear, and I am just living my life to the fullest. And that is not always, you know, the norm for people to, you know, see or you know, think that like, oh, this person is full of the that's another thing, or this person, you know, is so full of themselves because they look this way and they act this way. And I'm like, well, yeah, because I'm fucking hot. And that's how I see myself, and I feel like that's how other people should see themselves. But like that challenged idea really fucks with people and makes them think that like where do you come off, or where do you have the audacity to like have this perspective about yourself? Whereas like it's just about myself, whereas I see other people who look like they belong at a CVS, and then they are out here thinking that they're top 10 shit. And I'm just like, girl, but you're out here judging other people as opposed to like reflecting about who you are as an individual, because other people have seen you and think like, oh, this must be like a beauty standard. It's not a beauty standard. You are just there, and you should be grateful that you're just there.
Yeah, again,
I'm grateful that I'm just there.
One of the wonderful and weird experiences, or you know, things that exist in China.
yes, it is a very interesting landscape here with the people that you meet and encounter here. I guess before we go, I'm so sad this has just flown by. Can you tell us a little bit like what do you feel for like the future of the drag scene in Shanghai? What are you hopeful for with the coming months, I guess, and like also the performing scene in China?
Well, the drag scene in Shanghai and in China has grown exponentially. Now they're in terms of local queens, there's more than like 70 local queens from Guangzhou all the way up to Beijing. And they are phenomenal. They're beautiful individuals. And I want to see more growth, but I also want to see more drag artists that don't fit like the standard binary of female illusionary art. You know, I want to see more. I want to see more of the art that, you know, can be. I want to see people expand their horizons from like just being like beautiful to being, you know, thinking about their performance and thinking about who they are as a drag performer. And if they're not a performer and they just want to be a beauty artist, that's okay too. But I need more people for my stage.
Well, as being a bearded queen, what's you can see my beard now. What do you think? How does my beard rate? Have I got potential?
Well, I fill in my beard, so we can fill in some of that as well. It looks great.
Okay.
I love a beard. Give me a beard any damn day. I don't care whose beard it is. I will nom 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 on that beard. And if now we have like a couple of bearded drag performers, and I'm really so grateful and so happy that they've started to sprout up, because I wanted to see more of that. I wanted to see more of the dynamic between, like, the gender binary and how we play with drag. It can be more than just hyper masculine and hyper feminine. I want to see like what falls in the center, because so many things fall in the center. Even I fall in the center sometimes. Depending on my mood.
100%.
Well, thank you for joining us today for this episode. It's been great talking.
Thank you for having me. I'm so
we're
sorry
so
that
excited.
I probably spoke like crazy a lot.
No,
but
we're so thank you for sharing your experiences and just about all the performance scenes and things in Shanghai, and just tell people, where can they find you and follow you on Instagram and see your shows in Shanghai?
Word, you can find me if you're in Shanghai. You can find me at the Pearl Theater. I also do other events around Shanghai, so you can follow me and see where I'm available. You can follow me on Instagram at Fresh Cocosanti. That's FRESH and then Cocosanti. Learn how to spell it. And
I love how you spelled out fresh but not Cocosanti.
Because some people
work it out.
Some people spell fresh with an A, and I'm so confused by that. Why are you spelling fresh with an A? That's not how that works, my dearest friends. But Cocosanti is phonetic. You'll figure it out.
They'll figure it out.
I'll be the first thing that pops up if you're in China. And I've also started a podcast with my friend Cam, where we examine Disney movies from the perspective of adulthood. We have no qualifications, but we have experience in trying to figure that out from a brown queer perspective. It's called Your Bare Necessities. That's URBEAR Necessities. And you can check that out on wherever you get your podcasts. It'll be great. It'll be wonderful.
Yeah, wonderful. Give it a listen.
Yay!
Excellent.
It's really good. I think sometimes we talk about Disney movies, and that sounds bad. But I'm not.
No,
I'm not like those Disney adults.
Yes. No, it's great. Yeah, you guys check it out. Go follow and listen to the podcast. And thank you so much for joining us today, Giovanni.
Oh my God, thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
I'm so excited. And when you guys come down to see a Magic Mike show, I'm going to sit you right in the front row.
Yes, I want to see it. Next time we go to Shanghai, I'm going to let you know. Send us your schedule.
Drop me a message every Tuesday. I know that sounds bad, but Tuesdays are safe day,
Okay.
But people always come on a Tuesday.
Safe day.
People always come on a Tuesday. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for having me.
Bye.